We at the Wall Street Journal and our polling partners at NBC News released a new poll over the weekend, 2 weeks to go before the midterm election. It showed a very mixed picture, an interesting picture, a big surge in interest in the election in both parties, an increase in President Trump's job approval rating, which is obviously good news for Republicans, but continued preference for Democrats in the fight for control of Congress suggests a really close outcome here and one that's unpredictable when voters go to the polls in early November. The question then becomes, in a close environment like this, what are the key demographic groups? Who needs to show up to make one side or the other prevail? It's probably a statement of the obvious to say that a midterm election is all about turnout, but it's true because it's a smaller electorate in a midterm than in a general election when many millions more show up to vote. So who shows up? Well, I think there are 5 groups to keep an eye on. So number 1 is millennials. This is a huge audience for Democrats. They need to show up for Democrats to do well. And in our new poll, we saw a big jump in interest in the election among young voters, those aged 18 to 34, who are professing high interest in the election. That percentage jumped from 35% earlier in the year to 51% now. But that's still a lower percentage than other age groups. So the question about millennials is always, will they show up? Secondly, minority voters, also a key Democratic constituency, also a constituency where there was a big jump in interest in the election in our new poll. African American voters as well as Hispanic voters. Latinos are particularly an X factor for Democrats. They need to show up in some key states such as Nevada for Democrats to prevail. They're also not normally a great reliable voting bloc in a midterm election. That's going to have to be different for Democrats to do well this time. Number 3, college-educated white women. This has turned into a bulwark of Democratic support in this election season. They're hugely in favor of Democrats in House races and Senate races, and they seem to be highly energized. They may tip the balance in any number of suburban House districts that could go either way in a midterm election such as this one. Fourth, working-class white males. This is the opposite group in some ways of the college-educated white women. It's a big Trump constituency, therefore a very reliable Republican constituency in this midterm election. Again, the question is, will they show up? They have not been as reliable a voting bloc as college-educated white women are. That may be different this time because they're showing a lot of energy as well. And finally, senior citizens. Senior citizens are a big Trump support group, a big Republican support group right now, and they do tend to show up in midterm elections. And again, they're going to need to do that for Republicans this time to offset some of that millennial and minority voter interest. So they're the groups that I think are worth watching. I think you can also expect in the next 2 weeks a lot of efforts by both parties to get out the vote among those 5 groups.